How many times have you been about to give up and no one ever knew? It's in those quiet moments, when your strength disappears and you feel like you just can't go on, that your true self is revealed. And no, you're not alone. But if you keep letting exhaustion, doubt, and fear make your choices, you'll never discover what you're really made of. And maybe today is the day everything changes. In this video, I'm going to show you the 12 most powerful lessons from Stoicism, so you can learn to hold on when everything inside you is screaming at you to stop. These are ancient teachings, forged in adversity, that will help you stay strong when life shakes you to the core, stay standing when everything seems to fall apart, and awaken a strength you didn't even know you had. You're not going to hear pretty phrases here. What you'll find are real principles, tested by men who understood something essential. Giving up is not an option when your life, your purpose, and your path are on the line. If you're exhausted, confused, or on the verge of collapse, stay. This video is for you. Before we go on, answer me this. How many times have you been one step away from giving up and no one knew? That silent exhaustion you keep to yourself, that "I can't take this anymore" you hide so you don't worry anyone. That's exactly what we're going to face today. If any of this speaks to you, subscribe and join this community where you don't have to pretend everything's fine. Here, the only thing that matters is your truth and your will to keep moving forward. And tell me in the comments, where in your life do you feel like your strength is running out? Or if you prefer, just write, "I won't give up, even if it hurts." Now breathe. What's coming may help you more than you think. Ready to start rebuilding yourself from the inside out? Let's go. Lesson 1. Discipline is what saves you. Let me tell you something uncomfortable. You're not giving up because life is too hard. You're giving up because you rely too much on how you feel. Every morning you run a silent checklist. Do I feel like it today? Am I inspired? Can I handle this? And if the answer is no, you give yourself permission to postpone, to negotiate, to tell yourself tomorrow will be different. But here's the problem. Tomorrow your brain will ask the exact same questions, and you'll fail again. Not because you're weak, but because you're playing by the wrong rules. Marcus Aurelius didn't wake up each morning wondering if he felt like being emperor. He didn't wait to feel inspired to resolve conflicts, to deal with betrayals, or to carry the weight of a crumbling empire. He just did what had to be done. And that difference, my friend, changes everything. You're waiting for motivation like it's a bus that'll show up any minute. The Stoics moved by discipline, the only vehicle that's always there, even if it doesn't shine, doesn't excite you, and no one claps when you climb aboard. Giving up isn't that dramatic moment when you collapse and cry out, "I can't take it anymore." It's much quieter and far more common. It's hitting snooze 3 times. It's saying, "I'll skip today's workout, but I'll go tomorrow." It's opening the book you've been meaning to read for months and closing it after 2 pages because your mind's already on your phone. It's promising that this week you'll finally start, and reaching Sunday without doing a single thing. Every one of those small give-ups is teaching you something dangerous, that your word doesn't mean much, not even to yourself. I hate to be the one to say it, but the #1 mistake you're making is living at the mercy of your moods. You're treating your life like a surfer waiting for the perfect wave, when really you should be paddling, even when the sea is dead flat. Motivation is an emotion, and emotions are fickle, unstable, and unreliable. Today you feel unstoppable. Tomorrow you can't even get out of bed. And meanwhile, your life either moves forward or stalls depending on the chemical lottery of your brain each morning. Discipline, on the other hand, is a system of pre-made decisions. It's deciding today what you'll do tomorrow, no matter how you feel when tomorrow comes. It's making a deal with yourself that matters more than your fatigue, more than that morning laziness, more than that voice whispering, "It's okay to skip just once." Because it's not okay. Every time you give in, you're strengthening the muscle of quitting. Every time you follow through, even halfway, you're strengthening the muscle of discipline. My friend, discipline is an invisible muscle. At first, using it hurts like hell. The first times you wake up early when your body begs you to stay in bed, when you get to work even though your mind's elsewhere. When you follow through even though no one sees it or praises you, you feel like you're swimming against the current in heavy clothes. Every rep costs you. Every uncomfortable choice feels like lifting dead weight. But here's the interesting part. The more you use it, the less starting hurts. Not because the tasks get easier, but because you get stronger. You reach a point where breaking your commitments feels weirder, more uncomfortable than just keeping them. This isn't some pretty metaphor to hang on your wall, it's real, and you can prove it in your own life. Think of any habit you've stuck to for months: showering, brushing your teeth, showing up on time to work. Maybe it was hard at first, but now you don't even think about it. You do it on autopilot because you trained that consistency muscle. Discipline works the same way, only it can be applied to much more important areas: your health, your growth, your integrity, your peace of mind. Now, that doesn't mean turning into a robot that pushes through just to push through. Smart discipline includes rest, planning, and clear boundaries. Marcus Aurelius wasn't a feelingless machine. He wrote his meditations because he was tired, because he had doubts, because the weight of ruling was crushing. His journal was part of his smart discipline, a space to reflect, to remind himself of his principles, to realign. He didn't write because he felt inspired. He wrote because it was part of his inner structure. It was his way of not losing himself in the chaos. Here's something you need to see clearly. Giving up often wears the mask of self-care. You tell yourself you're being kind when you cancel the workout, when you delay the project, when you choose comfort for the 10th time in a row. But real self-care isn't about avoiding discomfort. Real care is holding yourself to your commitments because you know that on the other side of discomfort is a version of you that breathes easier, sleeps better, and respects themselves. Lying to yourself with excuses disguised as compassion isn't self-love. It's sabotage in disguise. Epictetus understood this better than anyone. He was a slave for much of his life. He couldn't choose where he lived, who he lived with, what to do with his time. Not even his body belonged to him. There's a story that his master once twisted his leg until the bone snapped, and even then, Epictetus stayed calm. Not because he was a masochist, or because pain didn't matter to him, but because he had decided that no one, absolutely no one, was going to take away control over his mind, over his response. That is discipline in its purest, most brutal form. Staying centered when everything outside you is trying to tear you apart. When he was finally freed and became a teacher, his entire philosophy revolved around that one idea. There are things you can't control, and there are things you can. Discipline isn't trying to control the uncontrollable. That only leads to frustration and burnout. Discipline is full commitment to what is in your hands, your effort, your attitude, your word, your response to what comes. Everything else can fail, change, betray you. But your discipline is yours. Seneca said it more bluntly. Every time you don't do what you said you would, you're giving your life away to laziness. Every hour you promise to spend growing, learning, improving, but waste on distractions, is an hour you never get back. And it's not about guilt, it's about clarity. Time isn't an endless resource you can throw around without consequences. It's the only material you have to build your life. And if you don't have the discipline to use it well, you end up building a life you don't recognize, don't want, and that doesn't represent who you are. Today you can create what I call your stoic minimum. It's the smallest version of the action you'll do, even on a bad day. I'm not talking about your epic, motivated, perfect self. I'm talking about your safety net. If you want to read more, your stoic minimum is 5 pages. If you want to train, it's 10 minutes of movement, even just walking. If you want to write, it's 100 words. The point isn't the quantity, it's keeping the system alive. Because the biggest danger isn't doing little, it's breaking the chain. Once you skip something for a few days, your brain starts normalizing its absence, and coming back becomes twice as hard. And here's another thing that really works. Tie discipline to identity. Don't ask yourself if you feel like it. Ask yourself, what would the person I want to be do? If you want to be someone healthy, that person doesn't negotiate with their body every morning. If you want to be someone reliable, that person follows through even when no one's watching. If you want to be someone who grows, that person studies even when they're tired. Discipline stops being a battle when it becomes a reflection of who you are. You can also make a Stoic pact. Never break an important habit 2 days in a row. If you slipped today, fine, you're human. But tomorrow, it's almost mandatory to get back on track. Because 2 days turn into 3, 3 into a week, and a week into a month of lying to yourself. Discipline isn't perfection, it's fast recovery. It's getting back up every time, not because you're a hero, but because you decided your word matters. Stop asking why you're not moving forward and start asking why you keep negotiating with your laziness. Discipline isn't punishment. It's not sacrifice for the sake of suffering. It's how you prove to yourself that you're serious about your life. It's how you build internal trust. It's how you become someone who, when they look in the mirror, doesn't need to make up excuses or spin justifications. Someone who knows that even if everything else falls apart, they stayed true to their word. Lesson 2. Adversity comes to train you, not to destroy you. I know there's something in your life right now that's weighing on you. It might be a health issue that just won't go away, a breakup that still hurts even though you thought you were over it, a job that drains every drop of your energy, or a loss you don't know how to process. And all you want is for it to disappear. That's normal. That's human. But here comes the uncomfortable truth you need to hear. That adversity might be the best training of your life, if you choose to look at it the way the Stoics did. Not through cheap motivational talk that romanticizes pain, but with the brutal clarity of someone who understands that pain is inevitable, but what you do with it is your choice. Marcus Aurelius wrote his Meditations in the middle of war and plague. Picture the scene. You're leading a collapsing empire, facing betrayals from people you once trusted, watching your loved ones die from illnesses you can't control, sleeping in military camps while deciding whether thousands of men will live or die. And in the midst of all that, you find time to write about calm, acceptance, and how to stay centered when the world is falling apart. He didn't do it because he was some emotionless, enlightened being. He did it because he knew that without that mental discipline, without that daily reminder of what truly matters, the chaos outside would consume him. Here's the key that most people miss. One thing is what hurts you, and another is what truly breaks you. Pain is inevitable. Life will hit you, take things from you, push you to the edge. That's not in your control. But what is in your control is the story you tell yourself about that pain. Because most of the time, what breaks you isn't the event itself, but the meaning you attach to it. This means I'm not enough. This means I'll never recover. This means life is against me. This means I've failed. And that's where you start to drown, not from adversity, but from your interpretation of it. Epictetus put it so simply, it stings. It's not the events themselves that disturb people, but the thoughts they have about those events. And this isn't abstract philosophy. You can see it in action right now. Think of two people who lose the same job. One sees it as the end of the world, spirals into anxiety, believes they'll never bounce back, that they're useless, that everything's lost. The other sees it, yes, as a hard hit, but also as a chance to reassess, to search for something more aligned with their values, to ask for help, to rebuild. The event is the same. The difference is how each person chooses to see it. This matters because a lot of people mistake Stoicism for resignation. They think it means suffering in silence, never complaining, accepting everything like a voiceless martyr. But that's not Stoicism. The Stoics weren't passive, they were strategic. They understood that some things you can't change, and there, mental resilience is key. But they also knew there are things you can change. And when that's the case, action is not optional. Wisdom is knowing the difference. Let's look at it from another angle. Every problem you face is actually a training ground. And I don't mean that as a pretty metaphor for Instagram. I mean it literally. Every hardship forces you to train a specific virtue. Patience gets trained when something takes longer than you want, and you can't rush it. Humility gets trained when you fail, when you're wrong. when you realize you're not as strong or as smart as you thought. Strength gets trained when you're exhausted, when you've got nothing left, and still you take one more step. Compassion gets trained when someone lets you down and you have to choose between resentment and understanding. Marcus Aurelius walked among political problems, conspiracies, plagues that killed thousands. And still, in his writings, there's a recurring idea. Every situation is a chance to practice a virtue. He didn't look for it, he didn't wish for it, but when it showed up, he used it. That's seeing adversity as training. Not because you enjoy it, not because you chose it, but because since it's already here, you might as well get something out of it instead of just bleeding from it. There's something deeper that adversity does. It forces you to let go of what's not essential. Crises take things from you that you thought were indispensable. A relationship you believed completed you. A status you thought defined you. A routine you assumed was unshakable. And when those things fall apart, you panic, because it feels like a part of you was ripped away. But time passes, and you realize something. You're still here. You're still breathing. You're still thinking, feeling, choosing. And maybe that thing you lost wasn't as much you as you thought. Maybe it was just a backdrop you were never meant to keep holding up. Seneca had a clear way of seeing it. True wealth isn't about having more. It's about needing less. Adversity shows you what was extra. It reveals what parts of your life you were holding on to out of fear, habit, appearances. And when all of that crumbles, what remains is what's essential. Your ability to choose, to respond, to rebuild from scratch if needed. That, no one can take from you, even if they take everything else. Now, my friend, imagine you're going through a breakup. Not just any breakup. One of those that shatters you, makes you question everything, makes you feel like you'll never be okay again. The default response is to drown in self-pity, to ask, why me? To obsess over what you did wrong, to cling to the fantasy that they'll come back. And you can stay there for months, years even. Or you can do what a Stoic would do. Ask yourself what this is teaching you about yourself. What boundaries didn't you set? What signs did you ignore? What parts of you were you neglecting while focusing only on the relationship? It's not about blaming yourself. It's about growing. About turning that pain into raw material for a more conscious version of you. Or imagine you're in a tough financial spot. You've gone months barely making ends meet, drowning in bills, forced to choose between eating well or paying something urgent. I'm not going to romanticize poverty. I'm not going to tell you money doesn't matter, because it does. But inside that struggle, you can train discipline, priorities, the humility to ask for help. You can learn to tell the difference between needs and wants. You can build creativity to make more with less. You didn't ask for this, it's not fair. But since it's here, use it. Or think of an injury that forces you to stop. You've spent months, maybe years, building a training routine, feeling good in your body, and suddenly something breaks and you have to pause. The temptation is to hate the injury, curse your luck, feel like you're losing everything you worked for. But you can also see it as a chance to practice patience, to learn how to take care of your body differently, to realize your worth isn't tied only to performance, that you're still valuable, even if you're not as physically capable as before. Epictetus was a slave. He had control over almost nothing in his life. He couldn't choose where to live, who to live with, what to do with his time. He was beaten, humiliated. His body was permanently damaged. He walked with a limp for the rest of his life. And that brutal, real experience became the foundation of his entire philosophy. He didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't romanticize it. He simply understood that if someone could take away everything except his mind, then his mind was the only thing that truly mattered. And from that he built a teaching that's still alive 2,000 years later. That's adversity as training, in its purest, hardest form. Here's something you can apply today. Change one question. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what can I use this for? It's not a cheap mindset trick. It's a reframe that pulls you out of victim mode and into strategist mode. Why rarely has an answer, and even if it did, it wouldn't change anything. What for opens doors. It gives you back control over the only thing that really matters, your response. Another practical tool. Write every night, just like Marcus Aurelius. A short reflection about the day's challenge and what virtue you had to practice. It doesn't have to be long or deep, just a couple of lines. Today I had to practice patience because the project got delayed again. Today I practiced humility because I messed up in front of everyone. Today I practiced strength because I kept going, even though I didn't feel like it. Over time, you start to see a pattern. You're not just surviving, you're training. And one more thing, stop fighting what's already happened. What happened already hurt you, that part is done. But when you keep arguing with it in your mind, when you replay it over and over, wondering what would have happened if you'd done something else, you're only making the pain last longer. The Stoics called this adding suffering to suffering. The first blow comes from life. The second, third, 10th. You deliver those yourself by mentally resisting what already is. Maybe life isn't trying to crush you. Maybe it's trying to wake you up. The adversity in front of you today isn't some cosmic punishment. It's not proof that you messed up. It's not a sign you're not good enough. It's an invitation to find out what you're really made of. The only thing that decides whether this adversity breaks you or builds you is you. Not your situation, not your past, not your luck. You. And the way you choose to see what's happening. Lesson 3. Either you master your mind or it masters you. If I ask you right now not to think about a blue elephant, what pops into your head? Exactly. A blue elephant, probably with a hat. Your mind just did the exact opposite of what I asked. And this isn't some cheap magic trick, it's a powerful demonstration of something crucial. Your mind doesn't always obey you. In fact, most of the time, it does whatever it wants. It generates thoughts you didn't ask for, creates stories you never fact-checked, and anticipates disasters that will likely never happen. And you, meanwhile, go through life believing those thoughts are truth, that the voice in your head is your ally, that this constant mental chatter is protecting you. Marcus Aurelius understood this when he wrote that the mind is guided by the thoughts it chooses to accept, not by the ones that pop up, because those appear on their own, and they're often absurd, terrifying, or completely irrational. The mind is shaped by the ones you keep, the ones you allow in, the ones you feed until they turn into beliefs. And there's the problem. Most people don't choose their thoughts. They just endure them. They live hostage to a mind running on autopilot, stuck in the same loops of fear, judgment, and self-criticism, day after day after day. Today, your mind has probably told you at least 10 things that aren't true. It said you're not good enough, that you're probably going to fail, that someone is judging you, that your future is uncertain and terrifying, that you should give up because it's already too late. And without questioning it, you believed at least half of that. Because your mind is so creative, so convincing, Hollywood should be hiring it. It's a master at creating drama out of nothing, at turning silence into rejection, at transforming a bad day into proof that your entire life is a mess. Epictetus put it even more directly. The danger isn't what happens, it's the narrator you carry inside. That narrator interprets, judges, distorts every situation to match your deepest fears. Someone doesn't reply to your message, and your inner narrator jumps in. They're ignoring you. You did something wrong. They don't care about you anymore. The truth might simply be that they're busy, but your mind doesn't deal in truth. It deals in terrifying possibilities. And out of all the possible explanations, it always picks the worst. Think of your mind like an untrained dog. It's not bad. It doesn't want to hurt you. But it doesn't know how to behave. It barks at everything, bites what it shouldn't, drags you around wherever it wants. And the more you let it run wild, the stronger it gets, and the harder it becomes to take back control. Training a dog takes patience, repetition, and clear boundaries. Training your mind works the exact same way. You can't just ask it once to calm down and expect it to listen forever. You have to work on it every day, with every thought that shows up, with every story it starts spinning. Maybe you haven't noticed this, but you don't choose your first thought. That one is automatic. It comes uninvited, shaped by your past, your traumas, your mental patterns. You see someone successful and your first thought is, "I'll never be able to do that." You didn't choose it, it just appeared. But the second thought, that one is yours. You can stay with the first one and let it freeze you in place, or you can question it. Why not me? What actual evidence do I have that I'm incapable? That tiny space between the first and second thought, that's where inner freedom begins. That's where the Stoics lived. Marcus Aurelius worked in that space by writing every morning. He didn't write for an audience. He didn't write to be read. He wrote to correct himself, like a self-guided therapy session. He reminded himself that he'd run into difficult people, that he'd feel tired, that unfair things would happen. But he also reminded himself that he could choose how to respond, that his mind didn't have to be a slave to circumstances. That didn't make him perfect. It made him conscious. And consciousness is the first step to mastery. Now let's talk about a very specific problem. A tired mind is the most dangerous kind. When you're stressed, sleep-deprived, worn out, your mind distorts everything. An unanswered message feels like rejection. A neutral comment sounds like a criticism. Silence becomes a sign that something is wrong. And you start making decisions based on those distortions. You act on interpretations that aren't even real. They're just the product of a tired brain that's not processing things clearly. The Stoics understood this well. They didn't react impulsively. They didn't respond from that first emotional hit. They practiced what we now call cognitive distance, seeing a thought as something separate from yourself, something you can observe without being owned by it, like getting a text message. It's not you, it's just a message that arrived, and you get to decide whether to believe it or not. Most people believe every thought their mind sends. The Stoics read the message, evaluated it, and often tossed it because they knew it wasn't true. Here's a common example you'll probably recognize. You have an important presentation at work. Days before, your mind starts playing every failure scenario. You see yourself stammering, forgetting your points, making a fool of yourself in front of everyone. Your boss looks disappointed. Your coworkers stare with pity. The more you play that movie, the more real it feels. By the time the day comes, you're so convinced it'll be a disaster that your nerves sabotage you. But none of it was real. It was just your mind running a horror film that you chose to watch on repeat. Seneca wrote about this when he said we suffer more in imagination than in reality. If you told Seneca how many hours you've spent dreading things that never actually happened, he'd probably ask, "Why do you do that to yourself?" Not from judgment, but from genuine curiosity. Why suffer twice? Once in your head, and once if it actually happens, and if it doesn't happen. Then you suffered for nothing, just because your mind decided to jump ahead. So what can you do today to start mastering your mind? When a thought brings you anxiety, fear, or heavy self-criticism, ask this simple question: what evidence do I have that this is true? Not what you imagine, not what you fear, not what you sense. Concrete evidence. Most of the time, you'll find you have none. That's when you realize you've been fighting ghosts. You've let your mind control you with stories that have no real foundation. Another tool, name the thought. Instead of saying I'm a failure, say I'm having the thought that I'm a failure. It sounds small, but it changes everything. In the first version, you are the thought. You've accepted it as truth. In the second, you've created space. It's just a thought. It's something you can see without being swallowed by it. The Stoics did this constantly. Marcus Aurelius would write things like, "Right now I'm feeling anger," not "I'm an angry person." That tiny shift saved him from the spiral. And here's another one, the rule of 3 breaths before you respond. When something gets to you, when someone says something that hits a nerve, when you're about to explode, take 3 deep breaths before doing or saying anything. Those 3 breaths are the moment where you take back control. That's the space where you choose whether to react from raw emotion or respond from clarity. Epictetus was ruthless with this. He said you can't excuse yourself by saying, "I couldn't help it." Yes, you could. There's always a split second between stimulus and response. And in that tiny second lives your power. One of the most powerful exercises you can try is this. Write down your thoughts as if they were text messages from someone else. Grab a notebook. Write exactly what your mind is saying. Then read it as if it came from a friend. Would you believe them? Would you follow their advice, or would you say, "Hey, you're being way too harsh, that's not true"? Most of the time, when you see your thoughts on paper from the outside, you realize how ridiculous they are. You realize you'd never speak to anyone else the way you speak to yourself. My friend, if you don't train your mind, it will train you, and it'll train you badly. It'll train you to doubt, to fear, to give up before you even try. It'll train you to live small, to avoid risk, to settle for less than you deserve. And all of that happens quietly, without you noticing, because you've been listening to that voice for so long, you've stopped questioning it. You think, "That's just who I am," when really, it's just who your untrained mind has made you believe you are. Mastering the mind isn't magic. It's not spiritual enlightenment. It doesn't require a mountain retreat or 3-hour meditations. It takes practice, consistency. Taking one thought, just one, and putting it in its place. Then another, and another, day after day. The Stoics weren't born with calm minds. They trained them. And so can you. My friend, I know this lesson is tough because it forces you to look inward. So tell me, what's one specific moment where your own mind tends to win the battle? Don't overthink it. Just write down the first thing that comes. Sometimes just recognizing it is already a step toward mastery. And if you don't have the words right now, leave yourself this sentence: "Today, I begin to take back control." Take a breath. Let's keep going. Lesson 4. Don't give up. You're just running low on patience. Today, you wanted quick results. I know, because sometimes I also wish life worked like Amazon Prime. You click, "Improve my life," wait 2 days, and boom, the new version of you arrives at your doorstep. But it doesn't work like that. It never has. And yet we're still surprised when things take time, when progress is slow, when change doesn't happen instantly. And it's right there, in that moment of impatience, that most people quit. Not because the path is impossible, but because it takes longer than they were willing to wait. Let me tell you about a scene Epictetus probably lived through more than once. A young student shows up to his class, frustrated after just 2 weeks of studying Stoic philosophy. He wants wisdom now, inner peace now, real results now. He tells Epictetus, "Master, I've been practicing for days, and I still feel the same. This isn't working." Epictetus looks at him calmly, with the kind of patience only experience gives, and answers something simple but crushing. "If you can't accept the process, you won't accept the results." The student goes silent, because in that moment he understands, philosophy isn't the problem. His problem is his inability to respect the natural rhythm of things. Seneca would have said it this way: "What's urgent is almost never what's important." But urgency manipulates us. We live in a permanent state of artificial urgency. Everything has to happen now. Everything must be resolved today. Everything should deliver instant results. And when something doesn't fit that made-up timeline we've imposed on it, we give up. We walk away. We decide it's not working. It's not for us. When the truth is, we just didn't give it enough time to grow. Everything takes longer than you want. For you, for me, and even for Marcus Aurelius. The difference is, he understood that. He wrote about accepting the pace of nature, about not forcing what needs time. Nature is never in a rush, and yet everything gets done. Trees don't grow in a week. Wounds don't heal in a day. Habits aren't built in a month. And you won't transform on the schedule your anxiety demands. Here's the real problem. Impatience isn't hunger for progress. It's fear it won't happen. It's distrust. It's your mind telling you that if results don't show up fast, they probably never will. And from that fearful place, you start to push. You overextend. You panic when things don't move at the speed you expected. And that panic is what ends up destroying everything. You don't quit because it doesn't work. You quit because it hasn't worked yet. Think about this. You've been working out for 2 months. You've stayed consistent, haven't missed a week. But when you look in the mirror, you don't see the changes you hoped for. Your body still looks the same, and you start thinking, this isn't working. I'm wasting my time. I should try something else. So you quit. 3 months later, you see someone who started at the same time and stuck with it, and they've made progress. What's the difference? Not genetics, not luck, just patience. That person understood that the body changes slowly, that muscles don't appear overnight, that fat doesn't vanish in 2 weeks, and they just kept going. Or this, you're working through emotional healing, a breakup, a loss, a betrayal. You've spent a few weeks trying to feel okay, going to therapy, doing the inner work. Then one morning you wake up crying again. The sadness hits you like nothing ever changed, and you think, I'm not getting better. This will never end. Why bother? But the mistake is assuming healing is linear, that every day you should feel a little better, that setbacks mean you're failing. The truth is, healing is chaotic. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. 3 good days, 1 terrible one. That doesn't mean you're stuck. It means you're in the process. Marcus Aurelius lived this every day. He ruled an empire in crisis, faced endless wars, lost people he loved, and still, he wrote about staying calm, about making it through one more day, even the heavy ones. Not because he got quick results, but because he knew that commitment to virtue doesn't depend on external outcomes. You can do everything right and still wait months to see progress. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're building deep foundations. Here's a crucial distinction you need to understand. A slow process is not the same as failure. Most people confuse the two. If something doesn't deliver fast, they assume it's not working. But slow doesn't mean useless. It means deep. Surface level change is quick. An extreme diet will make you lose weight in a week, but you'll gain it back just as fast. Deep change takes time. Rebuilding a healthy relationship with food might take a year, but it lasts for life. And maybe this is your pattern. You always quit right before something starts to work. You start a project and drop it at month 3, when it needed 1 more to gain traction. You start a habit and stop at 6 weeks, when it needed 2 more to stick. You start trying to heal a relationship and give up just before the breakthrough. That's not bad luck. That's a lack of patience. It's the inability to sit with the discomfort of being in the middle, without knowing when it will end. Epictetus taught that there are things in the process that are out of your control. You can't control how fast you heal, how fast you grow, how fast others respond to your effort. The only thing in your hands is your commitment. Keep doing what you know is right, even if the results haven't shown up yet. That's the only way to get there. No shortcuts, no hacks. Just consistent action, held over time. Here's something practical that changes everything. Make a pact with yourself to check your progress every 30 days. Not every 30 hours. Stop weighing yourself every day. Stop checking your metrics every hour. Stop asking every morning if you're better yet. Give time its time. Pick 1 day a month to check in honestly, and in between, just trust the process and follow through. And when you feel like quitting, ask yourself out loud, what's the rush? Why do I need this to happen right now? What would really change if it took 3 more months? That question pulls you out of urgency and brings you back to reality. Most of the time, there's no real reason for the rush. It's just your mind struggling with uncertainty. And that discomfort? It's not a sign you should stop, it's a sign you're building something deeper. The ability to keep going without immediate rewards. Break your journey into micro stages and celebrate the fact that you're still going, my friend. Don't just celebrate the final result. Celebrate that today. You did what you said you would do. That's real progress. That's what builds momentum. 1 day after another, keeping your promise, even if you don't see change yet. Because change is happening, under the surface, in places you can't see yet. Like a seed growing underground, you don't see it, but it's alive. My friend, the thing that's driving you crazy today could be what makes you proud tomorrow. That obstacle that feels endless, that effort that feels pointless, That path that feels like it's going nowhere. That could become the story you tell when you finally arrive. And you will arrive, but only if you don't quit today, only if you can hold on for one more day, and then another, and another. Not because it's easy, but because you've decided your impatience won't steal something you truly want. Life isn't taking too long. You're just rushing too much. You're asking things to happen in a time that doesn't belong to them. And if you keep doing that, you'll stay frustrated, quitting things that had a future, jumping from one effort to the next without giving any of them enough time to bloom. The Stoics knew how to wait. Not because they were naturally patient, but because they understood that patience is a choice. And today, you can make that choice too. Lesson 5. You lose strength when you don't live in the present. Picture a runner in the middle of a race. Every few seconds, they keep turning their head to see who's behind them, how far the starting line is, whether their technique was better at the beginning. Every time they look back, they lose pace, trip over their own feet, lose balance. Meanwhile, those who keep their eyes forward keep moving, not because they're faster, but because all their energy is exactly where it needs to be, on the step they're taking right now. Marcus Aurelius would say that looking back while you run is to lose the only moment that exists, this one. And you, my friend, are doing exactly that, mentally, every single day. Today, you've lost strength at least 10 times without realizing it. Every time you worried about something that hasn't happened yet. Every time you mentally replayed a mistake from months ago. Every time you imagined a future disaster so vividly that your body actually felt the fear. And while you were doing all that, the present moment passed you by. That conversation right in front of you, you didn't really listen. That work you were supposed to do, you half did it, that person sitting with you. They didn't get your full attention. You stepped away from the only place where your real power exists, the now. Epictetus explained it directly. There are things that depend on you and things that don't. The past doesn't. It already happened. The future doesn't. It hasn't come yet. The only thing that depends on you is this moment, this decision, this action. But most people live as if the present is just a narrow hallway between the regret of yesterday and the fear of tomorrow. And while they shuffle through that hallway, distracted, they lose everything. Because life doesn't happen in the past or the future. It happens here in this very second you're living as you read this. And it happens in the simplest ways. This morning in my office, a colleague made coffee. He boiled the water, set up the mug, waited for it to brew. But his mind was already in a meeting 3 hours later, rehearsing what he'd say, anticipating criticism, imagining responses. The coffee went cold. He didn't even notice. He drank it lukewarm, without tasting it, because he was never really there. And when I asked how the coffee was, he barely remembered drinking it. That's how scattered he was. Seneca observed this same phenomenon 2,000 years ago and described it like this. People live as if they have another life saved for later, as if this moment doesn't count, as if the next one is what really matters, as if there will always be time. But there won't always be time. There's no later. There's only now, and then another now, and then another. And if you're not present in any of those, you're not really living. You're just existing on autopilot while your mind wanders to places where you can't do a thing. Because here's the truth. Everything that improves your life happens in the present. The decision happens now. The action takes place now. The change starts now. Thinking about the future isn't progress. It's just mental noise that feels productive while doing absolutely nothing. Living outside the present drains your strength, literally, not just metaphorically. When your mind jumps to the future and imagines problems, your body reacts as if those problems are already happening. You produce cortisol, activate your nervous system, and burn energy fighting something that doesn't even exist. And when your mind loops through the past, reliving mistakes, your body reacts again. It gets heavy, sinks, wears down. Because your system doesn't know the difference between what's happening and what you're imagining. To your body, remembering humiliation is nearly the same as reliving it. And that's how you wear yourself out. with no real threat in front of you. The Stoics spoke of anticipated suffering as double suffering. If something bad happens, you'll feel it when it happens. But if you suffer it beforehand in your mind, you suffer twice. And most of the time, that bad thing never even happens, so you suffered for nothing. You drained yourself, not because life hit you, but because you hit yourself with mental stories that never came true. Now picture this. You need to have a difficult conversation, maybe with your boss, your partner, a friend. The talk is 2 days away, but during those 2 days, your mind won't stop. You rehearse what you'll say. Imagine how they'll react. Anticipate every objection. You get nervous just thinking about it. And by the time the real conversation arrives, you're already exhausted. You show up tense, defensive, foggy. And often the conversation doesn't even go the way you imagined. All that stress, completely useless. You robbed yourself of 2 peaceful days for a 20-minute exchange. Now let's go the other way. The past. Some people carry mistakes from years ago like backpacks full of rocks. They replay old conversations, torture themselves over decisions they can't undo, obsess over what might have happened if they had chosen differently. That's dead weight. It's not useful reflection. It's not growth. It's just an old file your brain insists on opening every day. Seneca talked about letting go, not because the past doesn't matter, but because clinging to it weakens you. You can't move forward lightly if you're dragging everything that's ever happened to you. And then there's the future. That territory that doesn't even exist but feels so real in your head. You're draining yourself fighting a ghost. The future is only built with present actions. Every tiny move you make now shapes what comes next. But if your mind is stuck in some imagined version of what could be, then you're not acting in the real present that you can influence. You're frozen by a threat that isn't even real, letting go of the one moment you do control. Marcus Aurelius had terrible days. Days of loss, betrayal, impossible choices. But he always returned to one question. What's happening now? Not what happened yesterday, not what might happen tomorrow, now. And from that place, he made his next decision. He didn't try to fix his whole life in one move. He just faced the moment in front of him with all his attention and strength. That's what held him together when everything else was falling apart. The present isn't always comfortable. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it's hard to sit with. That's why we run to the past or the future. Because there, we can fantasize, rewrite, imagine better versions of things. But the only place where you can actually stand your ground is here. The only place where you can act, choose, or change anything is this moment. Missing the present means missing your life. Throughout the day, stop at random and ask yourself quietly, where is my mind right now? Is it here, or did it drift off again? Don't judge, just notice. And if you realize your thoughts have wandered to the past or the future, gently pull them back, not with force, not with frustration, just a small, conscious tug back to what's right in front of you. That repeated action, day after day, trains your ability to stay grounded. And that ability, that presence, is the difference between truly living and merely surviving. Here's something else you can try. Pause for 10 seconds before reacting. Marcus Aurelius did this constantly. Before replying to a letter, before making a decision, before reacting to bad news. 10 seconds just to breathe, to refocus, to ask what the right response is, not from impulse, but from calm. Those 10 seconds are the space between stimulus and response. And in that space lies your freedom. And when your mind races toward the future, don't chase it. Just gently pull it back to one single present action. Just one. Don't try to plan the whole week. Don't try to solve everything at once. Ask yourself, what's the next thing I can do right now? Do that. Then the next thing. And then the next. That's how you build the future, without losing the present. If you're not living in the present, you're not really living. You're remembering or anticipating, but you're not here. And everything that matters is here. Your strength is here. Your power to change is here. Your real life, the only one you have, is unfolding right now. The present is small, yes. It's just this breath, this decision, this second. But something small, fully lived, with your whole presence, becomes destiny. And that destiny, you build it now, not tomorrow. Lesson 6. Silence makes you stronger than you think. Seneca said it 2,000 years ago. People run a lot, but they're always running from themselves. They travel, pack their schedules, move to new cities, search for distractions. But the problem follows them everywhere because the problem isn't outside, it's inside. And the only place you can face it is in silence. That uncomfortable place where there are no outside voices telling you what to think, no screens distracting you from what you feel, just you and what's really happening in your mind. Today, you're more afraid of silence than of looking ridiculous. You know it because you'd rather fill every gap with noise. Background music while you work, a podcast while you walk, a show while you eat, endless scrolling before bed, anything to avoid being alone with your thoughts. And I'm not judging you, almost all of us do the same. But here's the problem. You're running from yourself. And when you run from yourself, you become weak. You lose clarity. You lose your center. You become someone who reacts to everything because you never stop to think about anything. Picture this scene. Someone sitting in the car, engine off, hands on the steering wheel, no music, just silence. For many, those 5 minutes are unbearable. They have to turn on the radio, check their phone, do something to break that emptiness. But that moment, that brief silence before stepping inside, before going back to the noise, is worth more than 1,000 outside opinions. Because in that space, you can actually hear yourself. You can ask yourself how you're doing, what you need, what's working, and what's not. Marcus Aurelius used to seek out those moments to reorganize himself internally. Not because he was some enlightened being, but because he knew that without those moments of silence, the chaos outside would devour him. Here's the key almost nobody understands. Silence isn't the absence of noise, it's mental clarity. It's disconnecting from stimulation so you can see things clearly. When you're surrounded by voices, opinions, notifications, constant input, your mind can't process anything deeply. It just reacts, jumps from one thing to another, piles up more noise. But in silence, all that begins to settle. Confusing thoughts start to organize, important decisions become clearer. What seemed urgent reveals itself as trivial, and what felt insignificant starts to look essential. Marcus Aurelius made decisions that affected millions of people. He decided on wars, treaties, laws, and before making those decisions, he isolated himself. He'd retreat to his military tent, to a quiet corner, and write. Not for others, only for himself. He clarified his thoughts, reminded himself of his principles, examined his motives, and from that place of clarity, he acted. The contrast was brutal. Outside, the chaos of an empire in crisis. Inside, the silence that kept him from losing his way. That's where his strength was born. And then there's silence as a strategic tool. Epictetus taught something essential. The difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is automatic, impulsive, emotional. Someone says something that bothers you and you snap. Someone criticizes you and you fire back. Someone provokes you and you take the bait. That's reacting. Responding is something else. It's taking a moment, even just a short one, to decide what's worth saying and what's not. And that moment is silence. 10 seconds. 5 deep breaths. Just enough time for the hot emotion to fade and for reason to step in. Here's a concrete example. You're in conflict at work. Someone sends you a message with a tone you interpret as aggressive. Your first impulse is to reply immediately, to defend yourself, to make it clear they won't speak to you like that. You write the message, your fingers on send, but you choose silence for 10 seconds. You reread what you wrote, and you realize you're about to escalate something that could be solved calmly. You delete the message. You breathe. You write something else. Calmer. Clearer. The conflict deflates before it even begins. Those 10 seconds of silence saved your energy, your reputation, and probably your relationship with that person. Silence is also a filter against useless opinions. We live surrounded by social noise. Everyone has something to say about how you should live your life, what you should study, what job you should have, who you should be with, what you should want. And if you live exposed to that constant noise, you end up believing you need everyone's approval. You become weak because your center depends on outside voices that change by the day. But in silence, you hear yourself. In silence, you can separate what you truly want from what you were told you should want. Seneca spoke about this often. He didn't look for external validation, he looked for inner peace. And that peace only comes when you stop needing everyone to agree with you, when you stop justifying yourself to every critic, when you learn to be at peace with your decisions even if no one else understands them. And that requires silence. It requires moments when you're not checking in with anyone, when you're not seeking approval, when you simply ask yourself, is this right for me? And you trust your answer. Now let's go deeper. Silence as a form of resistance. When someone provokes you, staying silent isn't surrender. It's refusing to give them your energy. There are people who are always looking for a reaction. They want to see you explode, to drag you into their drama, to make you lose control. And if you take the bait, they win. But if you stay silent, if you let the provocation pass without reacting, that silence becomes a wall. It's not weakness, it's restrained strength. It's choosing where you put your attention and energy. And that conscious choice is pure power. Epictetus was a master of verbal self-control. He taught that you don't have to respond to everything. You don't have to defend every comment. You don't have to get involved in every argument. Sometimes the strongest answer is none. Let the other person talk. Let them wear themselves out. Let them project whatever they want. You stay intact without wasting your energy, without lowering yourself to a level that's not yours. That's using silence as a shield. And then there's the most uncomfortable truth. Silence shows you who you are without filters. When you're in silence without distractions, without the noise that numbs you, things you've been avoiding show up. Thoughts you didn't want to have, emotions you didn't want to feel, decisions you know you have to make but keep putting off. And that's where real change is born. In that uncomfortable place where you see yourself exactly as you are, where you can't lie to yourself, where there's no way to escape what you already know. The Stoics used silence as an inner mirror, not to torture themselves, not to drown in self-criticism, but to see things clearly, to recognize which habits need to change, which relationships are damaging them, which paths they're following out of inertia instead of conviction. And from that brutally honest place, they acted. Because silence doesn't weaken you, it reveals you. And once you see the truth, you can't keep ignoring it. Next time you're in a tense situation, count to 5 before you answer. 5. It's not much time, but it's enough for your brain to switch from reactive mode to strategic mode. Epictetus would do it. Marcus Aurelius did it. And so can you. It doesn't require any special skill, just the conscious choice not to be a slave to your first impulse. Also, take 1 minute of conscious silence every day, not as formal meditation, not as a spiritual practice, just as mental hygiene. 1 minute where everything is off, where you do nothing, where you're simply there. That minute is your daily reset. It's the moment you return to yourself, the reminder that you exist beyond the noise, beyond the external demands, beyond the chaos. And here's one more suggestion you may have never tried. Take short trips without music, without podcasts, without anything. Just you and the road. That's when answers appear. That's when problems you've been turning over in your mind for weeks start to clear. Not because silence is magic, but because you finally give your mind the space to process, to connect ideas, to reach conclusions the constant noise was blocking. Noise distracts you, makes you think you're busy, that you're active, that you're connected. But silence reveals you. It shows you what really matters, what you really feel, what you really need to do. And if you can learn to be with yourself without noise, if you can stay in that uncomfortable space where it's just you and your thoughts, then nothing outside can knock you down. Because your strength will no longer come from what happens out there. It'll come from what you've built inside, in those silent moments almost everyone avoids. Now, my friend, I'm going to ask you something. Pause for just a second. We're halfway through this journey, and if you've made it this far, it's not by chance. Something in you wants to keep fighting, even if a tired part of you keeps whispering that it can't go on. Tell me in the comments, which of these first 6 lessons hit you harder than you expected? Write it down to lock it in, so it doesn't slip away tomorrow. Lesson 7. Virtue is the only north that never fails. Marcus Aurelius was 17 when the Senate pressured him to approve something corrupt. He wasn't emperor yet, just a young man with political connections who could help smooth things over. The proposal was simple. Look the other way, sign a document, turn a blind eye. No one would ever know. And if he refused, he'd lose important favors, connections that would take him years to rebuild. He was alone in that decision. He could choose the easy way or the right one, and he chose the right one, not because he was a hero, not because he had any guarantees that things would work out, simply because something inside him already knew that straying from what he believed was just would mean straying from himself. That moment didn't make him emperor, but it forged his character. And that character, years later, would be the only thing holding him up when everything else fell apart. Here's the uncomfortable question you need to answer. How many times have you done something you didn't want to do just to be liked, avoid conflict, or impress someone? How many times have you betrayed what you know is right because the alternative was more convenient? It's strange. Every time you betray your values, you grow weaker. Not physically, not in an obvious way, but something inside you breaks. You become someone who doesn't respect themselves, someone who adjusts their principles depending on who's watching, someone without a solid center from which to make decisions. For the Stoics, virtue wasn't some abstract concept for philosophical debate. It was the only north that never fails. When everything else changes, when circumstances betray you, when people let you down, when your plans fall apart, virtue is still there. It doesn't ask anything in return. It doesn't depend on outcomes. It doesn't need applause. It's simply the commitment to do what's right because it's right, regardless of the consequences. And that inner solidity is what keeps you whole when the world turns hostile. There are people who achieve things, who collect successes, who on the outside seem to have it all figured out, and yet they feel a strange emptiness. They can't explain it. It's not clinical depression. It's not lack of achievement. It's misalignment. It's living in a direction that goes against your principles. Seneca put it clearly. Nothing wears you down like constantly betraying what you know is right, because every time you act against your values, you split yourself. One part of you does what seems convenient, another part judges you for it, and that internal division drains your energy without you even noticing. You become someone who tires easily, who constantly doubts, who can't rest peacefully because there's a background incoherence that never fully resolves. Picture your mind like a corrupted file. When there's internal corruption, everything slows down, everything glitches. You try to move forward, but something's off. You try to make decisions, but the options feel blurry. You try to trust yourself, but there's a voice reminding you of all the times you let yourself down. That's what it's like to live without virtue. You act split, fragmented, with no coherence between what you think, what you say, and what you do. And that fragmentation doesn't just weaken you, it exhausts you. Marcus Aurelius made brutally hard decisions based on virtue, not convenience. Decisions that cost him allies, that earned him enemies, that didn't bring immediate results. But he could sleep in peace. He could look in the mirror without shame. He could write in his journal without needing to justify himself or make up excuses, because his north was clear. Justice, courage, temperance, and wisdom. They weren't decorations. They weren't pretty ideas. They were foundations. And from those foundations, everything else was built. When you're unsure, when life puts you in ambiguous situations without easy answers, that's where virtue saves you. Because you don't have to ask what benefits you, what makes you look good, what's convenient. You only ask what's the right thing to do, and from there you act. You might lose something, it might cost you, but you don't lose your center. And your center is the only thing you truly need to protect, because it's the only thing no one can take from you unless you give it away. Now let's clear something up. Being a good person isn't being weak. There's a huge misunderstanding about this. A lot of people think that having strong values makes you soft, someone who gets walked all over, someone who can't stand up for themselves. But virtue isn't fragility, it's firmness. It's saying no when you have to, even if it makes people uncomfortable. It's setting clear boundaries, even if it costs you relationships. It's keeping your word, even when breaking it would be easier. That's not weakness, that's restrained strength. It's power that doesn't need constant display because it knows its worth. Epictetus used integrity as strength, in debates, in conflict, in situations where others tried to manipulate him. He wouldn't play dirty, wouldn't stoop to levels that didn't match his values. And that made him untouchable. Not because he was perfect, but because his coherence protected him. When your values are clear, when you don't compromise them, people know they can't buy you, can't drag you down, can't make you betray who you are. And that's real power. Picture yourself in a work group, and everyone starts bad-mouthing someone who isn't there. It's nothing serious, just some comments, jokes, complaints. You have two choices: join in so you're not left out, or say nothing. The first choice gives you instant belonging. The second leaves you on your own. But here's the thing, if you join in, you'll leave feeling empty. Because you know it wasn't necessary, that it added nothing, that you betrayed your own coherence just to avoid feeling excluded. And that feeling of emptiness, that's your virtue reminding you that you acted against yourself. Or imagine this: you're offered a well-paying job, but the project goes against your values. Maybe it harms the environment, maybe it exploits others, maybe it's legal but not ethical. Taking it would solve immediate financial problems. Turning it down means uncertainty. Most people accept. And then months go by and they feel awful without knowing why. Because the money doesn't compensate for the internal misalignment. Because every day you go to work is a reminder that you sold something that should have been priceless. Virtue isn't perfection. It's not about never messing up, never failing, never making a decision you regret. Marcus Aurelius made mistakes, had days when he didn't live up to his own standards, moments when he lost patience or made poor judgments. But the difference is, he always came back. He acknowledged the mistake, wrote about it, corrected himself. He didn't get stuck in guilt, and he didn't make excuses either. He just reset his compass and kept going. One mistake doesn't break your virtue. Surrendering to a pattern of self-betrayal does. Seneca often spoke of coherence as a moral act, not just what you do, but how you use your time, who you surround yourself with, what you accept and what you reject. All of that tells the truth of who you are, not who you say you are. And that's where most people fail. They say they value honesty, but they lie when it suits them. They say they value loyalty, but they betray when a better offer comes along. They say they value respect, but they speak badly of others behind their backs. That incoherence doesn't go unnoticed. Maybe others won't catch it, but you will. And it's you who has to live with yourself every day. So, what can you do? Before making any important decision, ask yourself, will I respect myself afterward? Not will it work, not will others approve, not will it benefit me. Will I respect myself? Because if the answer is no, then the cost of that decision is too high. You might gain money, status, comfort, but you'll lose something more valuable, your self-respect. And that's not easy to get back. Another thing, write down your 3 non-negotiable values, like a Stoic would before starting the day. 3 things you won't betray no matter what. They might be honesty, respect, courage, loyalty, justice, whatever defines the kind of person you want to be. And when a tough decision comes, look at those 3 values. If what you're about to do goes against any of them, there's your answer. You don't need more analysis. You don't need more opinions. Your north is already telling you what to do. And one last thing. If you're going to lie, let it be to protect someone, not to protect your ego. There are lies that save lives, that shield the vulnerable, that prevent unnecessary harm. Those have their place. But lies to look good, to avoid discomfort, to cover your mistakes, those only weaken you. Because every lie is a crack in your internal coherence. And enough cracks, and the whole thing falls apart. What you do every day either builds you or breaks you. There's no middle ground. Every decision aligned with your values makes you stronger. Every betrayal of yourself erodes you. And at the end of your life, you won't remember how much you earned or how many people you impressed. You'll remember whether you could look yourself in the mirror with dignity, whether you kept your word, whether you stayed true to what you knew was right, even when it was hard. That's virtue. And when everything else fails, my friend, that north will still be there, steady, waiting. But only if you haven't betrayed it. Lesson 8. Pain doesn't decide for you. You choose what to do with it. Let's make something clear from the start. Pain is not your enemy. It's a messenger. It's telling you something. About boundaries you've crossed. About losses you need to process. About exhaustion you've ignored for months. About injustices you need to confront. Seneca said it plainly. Pain is not punishment. It's information. And most people kill the messenger instead of reading the message. They drug themselves with distractions, denial, excuses. And because pain goes unheard, it gets louder. It screams. It stays longer. There's a story about Epictetus that rarely gets told with the bluntness it deserves. He was a slave. One day, his master, in a fit of rage, twisted his leg with such force that the bone snapped. Really think about that. A grown man breaking another human being's leg for no reason other than his own sadism. Epictetus was left permanently lame. That pain wasn't metaphorical, wasn't emotional. It was physical, lifelong. Every step he took for the rest of his life was a reminder of that moment. He could have drowned in bitterness, in hatred, in self-pity. No one would have blamed him, but instead he turned that experience into the foundation of an entire philosophy about what does and doesn't depend on you. He chose not to let that pain define his life. He chose to use it as fuel to teach something that would change millions. No one can take your mind from you unless you give it away. I don't know what pain you're carrying right now. It might be a loss, a betrayal, an illness, a failure that split you in two. But I do know this. It's not the pain itself that's holding you back. It's what you do with it. Because pain, by itself, has no direction. It doesn't decide whether you collapse or rise. It doesn't choose whether it hardens you or teaches you. That's your decision. And that decision, small, quiet, is what separates someone who stays broken forever from someone who rebuilds stronger. Marcus Aurelius didn't write from a peaceful mountain retreat. He wrote from sickness, from exhaustion, from betrayal by those he trusted. When he said the obstacle is the way, it wasn't theory, it was survival. It was him trying to find meaning in a pain he didn't ask for and couldn't avoid. And what he discovered is something you can discover too. Pain can be the greatest teacher of your life, if you choose to learn instead of just bleed. The pain that destroys isn't the pain itself. It's the pain you deny. When you try to ignore it, when you pretend it's not there, when you push it down hoping it disappears on its own, that pain festers. It rots. It turns into resentment, into bitterness, into an infected wound that poisons everything else. Epictetus taught something crucial. First, accept what hurts. Then, decide what to do with it. You can't transform what you won't acknowledge. You can't heal what you keep denying. There's a massive difference between pain that demands action and pain that demands patience. Some pain is there to push you into change. A job that's draining you. A toxic relationship that's emptying you. A habit that's slowly killing you. That pain is an alarm saying, move, act, get out. And if you don't listen, if you stay out of fear, or because you think you don't deserve better, that pain becomes your permanent reality. But there are other kinds of pain you can't fix with action. An irreversible loss, a chronic illness, a past you can't undo. Those pains ask something else. They ask you to carry them without breaking, to bear them with dignity, to refuse to let them define you. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this when he spoke of enduring suffering without losing your virtue. It wasn't about avoiding pain. That's impossible. It was about remaining who you are in the middle of it, about not letting pain turn you into someone bitter, vengeful, or destructive, about keeping your humanity intact even when everything hurts. That's not resignation. That's resilience. That's the deepest kind of strength there is. Here's a trap many people fall into. They make their pain their identity. They become the person who went through that. And every conversation circles back to it. Every decision comes from that place. Every relationship is built on that wound. And the pain, which should be temporary, becomes permanent, because you don't know who you'd be without it. Feeling pain is a fact. Living in it is a choice. And that choice steals your future by keeping you stuck in the past. Imagine someone going through a brutal breakup, the kind that makes you question everything, your judgment, your worth, whether you'll ever trust anyone again. That person has two paths. They can sit in the pain, feed it, relive it every day, convince themselves they'll never heal. Or they can use that pain as information. Ask themselves what boundaries they didn't set, what red flags they ignored, what parts of themselves they neglected for the sake of the relationship. And from there, rebuild, redefine their standards, become someone who no longer accepts crumbs, because through pain, they've learned what they truly need. Or think of someone humiliated at work, abusive bosses, backstabbing colleagues, unrecognized effort. That pain can drag you into self-pity, constant rage, victimhood. Or it can teach you to draw boundaries, to stand up for your dignity, to understand that your value doesn't depend on others seeing it, and from there make firmer decisions. Leave, change paths, demand respect. The pain didn't change. What changed was how you used it. Seneca saw pain as a harsh but necessary teacher. He didn't glorify suffering. He didn't say it was beautiful. But he did say that suffering without reflection is wasted suffering, that every pain can teach you something about yourself, about your limits, about what truly matters, and that ignoring those lessons dooms you to repeat the same mistakes again and again. So, how do you make sure pain never makes you give up? Don't ask pain to be pleasant. Ask it to be clear. Ask it, what are you telling me? What needs to change? What do I need to let go of? What do I need to learn? Not from guilt, not from masochism, but from genuine curiosity. Because if the pain is already here, if it's already hurt you, at least don't let it be in vain. At least let it leave something useful. Then write this phrase somewhere you'll see it. This hurts, but it doesn't define me. Because that's the truth. Pain is something you're going through, not something you are. And that distinction is everything. You can feel all the pain in the world, you can cry, you can break, but as long as you stay clear that pain is not your identity, there's still hope. There's a way forward. There's a possible rebuilding. Also, look for the message in pain before looking for the exit. Most people just want pain to go away. They'll take anything to numb it, to distract from it, to forget. But if you leave the pain behind without understanding what it came to teach you, you'll end up in the same place again. Because you didn't learn. You just ran. And running is not healing. Your pain is not here to make you smaller. It's not here to convince you you're worthless, that you can't, that it's all over. It's here to show you that you're capable of more than you thought, that you can carry more weight than you believed, that you can rebuild even when it feels like there's nothing left. Pain doesn't decide your fate. You do, every day, with what you choose to do with it. And that decision, though invisible, is what makes you not just someone who survives, but someone who transforms. Lesson 9. Without a why, everything knocks you down. If you don't know what you're fighting for, every pebble on the road feels like a wall. Even the smallest obstacle becomes insurmountable. A single bad day becomes a valid excuse to quit. And it's not because you're weak, it's because you're running without direction. You're spending energy without knowing where it's going. And when you don't know where you're headed, exhaustion hits sooner, doubt paralyzes you faster, and giving up starts to sound like the most reasonable option. Marcus Aurelius didn't begin a single day without asking himself one question: why am I here today? It wasn't some abstract philosophical question. It was practical. It was his way of making sure that everything he did that day had meaning. You, on the other hand, start the day chasing chaos, without asking yourself anything, without knowing if what you're doing is actually taking you somewhere that matters. I know people who start projects full of excitement. Day one, they're fired up, motivated, convinced this time will be different. But 2 weeks later, they can't even remember why they started. The diet that was going to change their life becomes just another abandoned attempt. The course that was going to open doors gets left behind after lesson 3. The habit that was supposed to transform them lasted exactly 4 days. And the pattern repeats again and again. Not because they lack willpower, but because they never got clear on their why. Seneca said it 2,000 years ago. No wind is favorable to someone who doesn't know to which port they're sailing. You can have all the energy in the world, but if you don't know what it's for, you're going to waste it. Let me tell you something that happened to someone I know very well. Amanda had been trying to change careers for 5 years. 5 years of starting projects with enthusiasm, imagining what her life would be like once she made it, riding that high for the first few days, and then always falling into the same pattern. After a few weeks, the doubt came, the fatigue, the insecurity, and just when the road started getting uncomfortable, the temptation to go back to the familiar appeared. And she gave in. She quit. Then she'd look for another idea, another course, another new beginning. And for 5 years she repeated that cycle, jumping from plan to plan without ever really moving forward. Not because she was weak, but because deep down, she didn't know where she was going. She was walking without a compass, hoping that motivation alone would push her. But motivation never lasted long enough. Until one day, exhausted with herself, she sat in front of a blank notebook. Not to plan something new, but to ask herself one single question. Why do I want to change careers? This time she refused to accept nice, generic answers. No, to be happy or to grow. She forced herself to write what truly hurt. That she'd been dimming her light for years, that she was living a life that didn't feel like her own, that she needed to feel once again like what she was doing had meaning to her. Those words made her uncomfortable, but they also woke her up. And in that exact moment, something happened that hadn't happened in 5 years. She felt direction. Not perfect clarity, but a straight line where before there was only noise. From that day on, every time fatigue or doubt crept in, she went back to read her why. And instead of quitting, she adjusted. Instead of running, she corrected. And for the first time, she moved forward. Because when you find a why that hurts and matters, giving up stops being an option. Your path changes because you change. That's why Epictetus said, "He who knows his why can endure any how." The problem was never that Amanda couldn't. It was that she didn't know why she should. A clear purpose is your mental armor. It doesn't make problems disappear. It doesn't protect you from the blows. But it keeps those blows from knocking you down. Because when you know why you're doing something, when that why is solid and real, obstacles stop being reasons to quit and become part of the journey. Most of the failures people go through don't happen because things were impossible. They happen because there was never a real purpose holding them up. There was just a spark, just a nice idea, and sparks burn out. Nice ideas evaporate when the hard work begins. Your why also silences internal doubts. Without purpose, every choice feels equally valid or equally pointless. You fall into paralysis because you don't have a clear filter to decide. Do I do this or that? Do I stay or go? Do I invest time here or there? And while you hesitate, time goes by and you move nowhere. But with purpose, the choices organize themselves. You no longer ask what to do. You just ask what gets you closer to your why. Marcus Aurelius constantly asked himself if what he was doing aligned with his mission. Not every 5 years, not when he felt like it, every morning. And that constant check-in kept him aligned, even when everything around him was chaos. Now listen, purpose is not a cute phrase to stick in your Instagram bio. It's not to be happy, live life to the fullest, or leave a mark. That's personal branding, not purpose. A real purpose is concrete, actionable, slightly uncomfortable because it forces you to grow. Seneca said that big goals require discomfort. If your purpose feels cozy, it's probably not important enough. Your why should scare you a little. It should make you think, I don't know if I can, but I'm going to try. Because if it doesn't intimidate you at least a bit, it's not pushing you anywhere. Life tests you more when you're aimless. It's as if the universe senses that you're drifting and throws obstacles your way to see if you'll wake up. And without a why, every obstacle makes you change direction. A negative comment, and you quit. Slow results, and you switch strategies. One bad week, and you decide it wasn't meant for you. You become someone who starts 1,000 things and finishes none. And the wear and tear is brutal, because starting over again and again takes more energy than sticking with something long-term. But with purpose, the exhaustion feels different. It's still exhaustion, yes, but it has direction. You know you're tired because you're working on something that matters, not because you're spinning in circles. Epictetus taught that those who act guided by reason and purpose are unstoppable, not because they don't face problems, but because problems don't derail them. Their direction is so clear that they can walk through storms without losing their way. And that solidity doesn't come from perfection. It comes from clarity. When you know why you do what you do, you don't need everything to go right in order to keep going. You can fail and still learn. You can fall and still rise. Because the purpose is still there, waiting, reminding you why you started. Picture two people starting at the gym on the same day. One goes because I should get in shape. The other goes with a deeper why, to regain energy to play with their kids, to feel strong again after an illness, to prove they can stick to something. Who do you think is still going after a month? The first quits in 2 weeks because their why was superficial. The second might have rough days, might not see results right away, but they keep going. Because their purpose doesn't depend on daily motivation, or picture someone working in a job that goes against their values. They do it because they need the money, because it's what they got, because they can't find anything else. But each day feels heavier. Every task feels empty, and burnout comes much sooner, because there's no why supporting the effort. Now compare that to someone working in something aligned with their purpose. It may be just as hard, just as demanding, but something inside sustains them. There's meaning that makes the sacrifice worth it. When Marcus Aurelius wrote in the middle of military campaigns, surrounded by cold, exhaustion, and uncertainty, he wasn't writing to document his life. He was writing to keep his purpose alive, to remind himself every morning why he was there, to serve, to be just, to uphold virtue. That daily practice of reconnecting with his why was what kept the outer chaos from dragging him off course, because the chaos constantly tried to pull him into convenience, moral shortcuts, fatigue, and resignation. But his purpose was stronger than all of that. Write down your why in a phrase that scares you a little, one that isn't comfortable or safe, one that forces you to grow. And once you have it, read it every morning like Marcus Aurelius did. Not to chant it like a hollow mantra, but to ask yourself if what you're about to do today brings you closer or takes you further from it. That simple question reorganizes everything. Suddenly you know what deserves your time and what doesn't. You know when to say yes and when to say no. You know where to put your energy. When you don't know what to do, when you're confused or lost, go back to your why. Ask yourself, does this bring me closer or take me further away? And act accordingly. You don't need to complicate it. You don't need 1,000 strategies or perfect plans. You just need a clear direction, and the will to stay on course even when it's hard. Without a why, my friend, anything knocks you down, but with a why, even wounded, even exhausted, you keep walking, because you know why you're walking. My friend, I'm going to ask you something. Close your eyes for a second and think about that one reason that, when you remember it, makes everything else, the fatigue, the doubt, the fear, lose its power. If while listening to this lesson even a flicker of your true why appeared, write it in the comments. Not for others to read, but so you can anchor it. And if you can't put it into words just yet, simply write, "My purpose is starting to come into view." Lesson 10. Your inner strength matters more than external chaos. Someone is sitting in the bathroom at work, breathing deeply to keep from crying. Outside there are impossible demands, a boss who's never satisfied, co-workers who judge, deadlines piling up. The chaos is real, tangible, aggressive. But inside that bathroom for 2 minutes, that person pulls themselves back together. They breathe. They remember something. And they walk out. Not because the chaos disappeared, but because they found an inner space where chaos can't enter without permission. Marcus Aurelius wrote it like this: "The mind is like a citadel, a refuge that no one can conquer unless you allow it." And that truth, so simple, so brutal, is the only thing that separates someone who survives from someone who collapses. The world shouted at you today. Social media bombarded you. Problems piled up. But your inner world still has the final word. Seneca said that he who masters himself does not fear the judgment of the world. And he didn't say it from a comfortable life. He said it from exile, from betrayal, from situations where everything external conspired against him. And even so, he preserved something untouchable, his inner clarity, that certainty that the chaos outside doesn't get to decide who you are inside. Let's see it with someone real. Anna is a single mother, 2 jobs, impossible hours, a child who needs attention she barely has time or energy to give, money that's not enough, exhaustion that she feels in her bones. The external chaos of her life is undeniable. No one could tell her she's exaggerating or that she should relax. But one day she discovers something. Her inner strength doesn't grow by avoiding chaos. It grows by creating order within. She starts small. 5 minutes in the morning to breathe before beginning the day. 10 minutes at night to write down how she feels. Not to solve anything, just to process. And that inner order, though it doesn't change her external situation, changes how she moves through it. She no longer feels dragged by everything. She starts to feel that she can handle it. Epictetus would have understood it perfectly. You don't control what happens outside, but you do control what you choose inside. External chaos is inevitable. Everyone goes through it. Family problems you didn't ask for, economic instability, unexpected events that ruin your plans, people who let you down, situations you can't control. That's not going to change. Life is chaotic by nature. But internal chaos is optional. And here lies the difference between those who collapse and those who move forward. It's not in the circumstances. It's in the ability to maintain a steady center while everything around you shakes. Inner strength isn't hardness. It's not pushing through without feeling. It's not repressing emotions or pretending everything's fine. It's clarity. It's knowing what depends on you and what doesn't. It's being able to distinguish what you can change from what you can only accept. Epictetus taught this distinction as if it were the only thing that mattered in life. And he was right, because most human suffering comes from trying to control the uncontrollable, and from neglecting the only thing that does depend on us, our response. Here's something almost no one notices. External chaos amplifies your internal noise. If you're already unwell inside, if you're anxious, exhausted, lost, every small problem feels huge. A neutral comment wounds you. A minor setback breaks you. A criticism haunts you for days. But if you're strong inside, if your center is solid, even a big problem becomes manageable. Not because it's easier, but because you now have a place to hold it from. It's like wearing emotional noise-canceling headphones. The noise is still there, but it doesn't pierce you. Marcus Aurelius wasn't calm by personality. He wasn't born with a Zen temperament. He practiced calm as a deliberate discipline. He wrote every morning to get mentally centered before acting. He reminded himself what mattered, what depended on him, what was temporary. And from that place of inner order, he faced the day's chaos. He governed an empire in crisis, dealt with wars, plagues, betrayals. His external life was constant storm, but his internal life was protected because he protected it, deliberately, every single day. Now think about this. Your inner strength transforms interpretation. The chaos is still chaos. The problems are still problems. But you decide whether this is the end of the world or just a specific situation you can move through. That choice, small as it may seem, changes everything. Because it's not about denying reality. It's about not letting reality tell you a story more dramatic than it really is. There's a difference between this is hard and this is impossible. Between I'm tired and I can't go on. And that difference is marked by your inner strength. Imagine you're in a chaotic meeting. Voices overlapping, people interrupting, tension in the air. You can join the noise, raise your voice, react from the same aggressive energy. Or you can keep your tone calm, speak when it's your turn, and not let yourself get pulled into collective hysteria. Not from a place of superiority, but from a conscious choice not to lose your center. That decision, that small act of holding your interior steady while everything outside explodes, is real power. Or think of a family argument. Someone provokes you, tries to make you react, wants to drag you into their drama, and you feel the urge to bite the bait, to defend yourself, to jump into the conflict. But you choose not to. Not from fear, but from the clarity that getting into it doesn't serve you, that you can choose not to participate in something that will only drain you. Epictetus called this knowing how to choose your battles. You can't control the waves, but you can control your position in the boat. When everything outside is a mess, return to an internal ritual. It could be 5 slow breaths, writing 3 lines about what you're feeling, a 10-minute walk with no destination. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that it's yours, that it's the place where you recenter, where you find your axis again. Marcus Aurelius wrote. Seneca retreated to reflect. Epictetus asked himself what depended on him in that situation. Each had their ritual, but all understood that without that internal space, the chaos would devour them. Before responding to something chaotic, ask yourself this question. What version of me do I want to be right now? Not what do I want to say, not what do I want to do. What version of me do I want to embody? Because your answer to that question defines everything. If you want to be someone who reacts from anger, you'll act one way. If you want to be someone who responds from calm, you'll act another way. And that choice is always available, even if it doesn't feel like it. Say this out loud, as a reminder to yourself. This doesn't decide who I am. The problem doesn't decide who you are. The crisis doesn't decide who you are. Someone's opinion doesn't decide who you are. Only you decide that. And you decide it in every moment, in every response, in every small action. The external chaos will continue to exist. It will probably intensify at times. But your inner world, that sacred space where you truly live, only gets disordered if you allow it. And keeping it in order is not a luxury. It's not optional. It's the only thing that lets you keep standing when everything else collapses. You don't need to control the world, just your inner world. And that control, that strength, is available right now, not tomorrow, not when things get better, now. In this very moment when you decide how you're going to hold what you're facing, when your center is steady, nothing external knocks you down. You may bend, you may shift, you may adapt, but you don't break. Because your strength doesn't come from outside. It never did. It was always inside, just waiting for you to remember it. Lesson 11. Failure doesn't break you, it trains you. My friend, listen closely. Failure is not a tragedy, it's statistics. It's part of any human process where you're trying something you haven't yet mastered, And yet people treat failure as if it were a final sentence, as if a single mistake confirmed that they're worthless, that they can't do it, that they should give up. But Epictetus said it in a way so simple it hurts. No one is born knowing. Everything is learned by doing, and doing means failing. It means getting it wrong 1,000 times before you get it right once. There's no way around it. There's no shortcut. You either fail and learn, or you try nothing and stay exactly where you are. Think of a potter working in his studio. He's been molding a vase for hours. It's almost done, and suddenly, one wrong move, and the piece collapses. It breaks. Months ago, that potter would have exploded in frustration. He would have cursed, slammed the table, thought about quitting altogether. But not today. He stops. He breathes. He calmly gathers the pieces and starts again. No drama, no yelling, just the acceptance that this is part of the craft. Marcus Aurelius called this acting according to nature. When something breaks, you begin again. No self-pity, no wasting hours in regret. You simply adjust, learn, and keep going. Here's the most dangerous question you ask yourself when you fail. What if I'm not good enough for this? That question didn't even exist for the Stoics. For them, failing was information, not identity. A mistake tells you where you're failing, not who you are. And that difference changes everything. Because if failure defines you, then every mistake confirms your uselessness. But if failure informs you, then every mistake is an arrow pointing exactly to what you need to work on. Failure functions like a map, not a sentence. Each failure highlights a specific weak spot. It doesn't say you're a mess. It says this area needs more practice. Marcus Aurelius wrote down his shortcomings in his journal, not to punish himself, not to feel bad, but to grow. He wrote down his mistakes with the same objectivity you'd use to list missing ingredients in a recipe. No judgment, just observation. And from there, he worked on improving those specific areas. Now we have to be careful and know how to distinguish between external failure and internal failure. External failure is about results, failing a test, losing a client, not getting the job, a project not working out. That hurts, yes, but it's part of the game. Not everything works out. Internal failure is something else. It's giving up out of fear. It's avoiding the attempt so you don't have to face getting it wrong. It's letting others' opinions paralyze you. The Stoics couldn't control external failure, but they could control the internal, and that's where they focused, not giving up, continuing to try, refusing to let fear make decisions for them. Here's something successful people understand that others don't. It's not that they fail less, it's that they tolerate failing without falling apart. They have an enormous capacity to make mistakes, process the blow, and try again. Not because they're emotionally stronger, but because they've trained that tolerance. Seneca explained it. Enduring discomfort is part of strength, and failure is uncomfortable. It's humiliating, it's frustrating. But if every time you fail you destroy yourself inside, then you can only try things where success is guaranteed. And in those things, there's no growth. Failure is like a tough coach, the kind that makes you repeat the technique 100 times because they know that's how the muscle is built. It hurts. You get tired. You want to quit. But that coach isn't punishing you. They're preparing you. Failure forces you to improve something you were avoiding. It shows you the blind spot you didn't want to see. And yes, it's uncomfortable, but it's also useful. Because without that information, you'd keep failing in the same place without knowing why. Think of ancient trades. A carpentry apprentice failed 10, 20, 50 times before making a decent piece of furniture. It wasn't optional. There were no perfect tutorials or quick hacks. There was only trying, failing, adjusting, and trying again. And after enough tries, the apprentice became the master. Not because they had some special talent, but because they stayed through the failing process without giving up. Failure was the rite of passage. No one graduated without it. Epictetus taught that failure is part of moral training, not just technical, because every time you fail and choose to get back up, you're training courage. Every time you fail and choose to adjust instead of quit, you're training perseverance. Every time you fail and refuse to let it define your worth, you're training real self-respect. Failure doesn't just make you better at the thing you're doing, it makes you stronger as a person. Now, put yourself in this situation. You take a competitive exam and fail. Not once, several times. Each attempt is months of studying, sacrifice, hope. And each time you see you didn't pass, it hurts. But if you use that pain as information, if you review what went wrong, if you adjust your strategy, each try brings you closer. Not because the universe rewards persistence, but because each failure teaches you something success never could. Or you try to build a habit and keep breaking the streak. You start reading daily and stop after a week. You start working out and quit after a month. You start meditating and give up after 3 days. The temptation is to think you're not made for habits, that you lack discipline, that maybe you shouldn't even try. But every broken streak shows you something. What obstacle you hit, what excuse you used, what context made you quit. And with that information, you can design a better next attempt. Or maybe this has happened to you. You prep for a job interview for months, and they don't hire you. You poured in time, energy, hope, and they say no. You can take it as a personal rejection, a confirmation that you're not good enough. Or you can take it as data. Maybe your technical skills were solid, but your communication needs work. Maybe your experience is strong, but your personal story isn't coming across clearly. That insight doesn't come from success. It comes from failure. Do a kind autopsy of your failures. Not brutal, not destructive. Kind. Ask yourself with curiosity, what worked this time? What didn't? What will I adjust for the next try? Not with judgment, with observation, as if you were analyzing someone else's attempt, someone you want to help. That emotional distance lets you see clearly instead of drowning in self-criticism. Don't say, I'm a mess. Say, I haven't mastered this part yet. That yet changes everything, because it acknowledges that you're in progress, not at the end. That today's failure doesn't define tomorrow's potential. Marcus Aurelius acknowledged his own weaknesses in his meditations, not to beat himself up, but to work on them. And he did it with the same ease as admitting you need more practice in a language. No drama, just recognition. Treat yourself the way you'd treat someone learning something hard. If a child is learning to walk and falls, you don't say they're a failure, that they should give up, that clearly they're not cut out for walking. You hold out your hand, smile, and tell them to try again. And that's how they learn. It should be the same with you. You're learning hard things, you're trying to grow. And you're going to fall, many times. But each fall is part of the process, not proof of your uselessness. Failure doesn't break you, my friend. It trains you for the version of yourself you haven't met yet, the version that only appears after enough attempts, enough adjustments, enough persistence. Falling is normal. It's human. It's inevitable if you're trying anything that's worth it. Not getting back up is choosing to abandon your story. And your story deserves more than an ending where you decided that one mistake was reason enough to stop. And look, after everything we've talked about so far, there's something that always catches my attention. Many people do everything right. They get up, they try again, they fix their mistakes, they learn from failure, and still, they feel like something's missing, like there's a piece that still doesn't quite fit. It's not strength, it's not discipline, it's not patience, it's something else. The final piece that separates someone who keeps going from someone who truly never gives up. Do you want to know what it is? Final lesson. Hope only works if you move. Maybe this story will help. Something that happened long ago between an old man and his apprentice. It wasn't a great revelation or an epic moment, but it completely changed how the young man understood hope. One afternoon, while they rested beside a bowl of cold water, the old man asked what he hoped to achieve in life. The apprentice spoke with enthusiasm, dreams, plans, excitement, goals, and that feeling that somehow things would get better over time. The old man listened in silence, then pointed at the bowl. "Imagine you want this water to boil," he said. The apprentice nodded. "Now tell me, how long will it take to boil if you just sit and watch it?" The young man smiled. "Never. It needs fire." The old man tilted his head like he'd been waiting for that answer. "Then move the wood. Do something. Hope alone doesn't raise the temperature." In that moment, the apprentice understood something he hadn't grasped in years. That wanting is not moving forward. That imagining is not doing. That waiting without acting is standing in front of a bowl of water that will stay cold forever. And the old man, with the calm of someone who's seen too many lives wasted by inaction, closed the lesson with a phrase the young man would never forget. Hope is the beginning, but movement is the path. Hope isn't sitting around wishing. It's not repeating affirmations while your life stays exactly the same. It's not trusting that the universe will send what you need without you lifting a finger. Real hope is getting up even when you don't feel like moving. It's taking action even when you don't have guarantees. It's trusting that your actions matter, even before you see results. Marcus Aurelius believed in that kind of active hope. He took action during a plague without knowing if his effort would help. He made decisions in the middle of wars with no certainty they would work. But he acted anyway. Because he understood something essential. Hope that doesn't translate into action isn't hope. It's fantasy. Here's the problem. Some people have hope but are paralyzed. They wait until they feel ready to start going to the gym. They wait for their relationship to improve without having a conversation or changing anything. They wait for the perfect opportunity without creating one. They wait for the anxiety to go away without changing a single habit. And while they wait, life moves on. The years go by, and hope becomes a comfortable excuse for not facing the fear of taking action. Hope is like a spark. It's that tiny flicker that tells you something better is possible. But a spark by itself doesn't warm anything, doesn't light anything, doesn't change anything. You need the engine. And the engine is action. Action turns hope into reality. Without it, the spark dies, the dream rots, and you're left with a life full of "I could have" instead of "I tried." Epictetus didn't sugarcoat it. Hope is within your power because your actions are within your power. You can't control whether it will work. You can't control how long it'll take. You can't control whether others will respond the way you hope. But you can control whether you move, whether you try, whether you do your part. And that's where real hope lives, not in the outcome, in the effort. Not in a guaranteed future, but in the commitment to try. There's a false kind of hope that paralyzes you. It's the one that tells you everything will fix itself if you just have enough faith, that you don't need to do anything, just believe. And that's emotional self-deception. It's a sophisticated way to dodge responsibility. Because action is scary. Action involves risk. It means you could fail, make mistakes, invest energy, and not get what you hoped for. But not acting guarantees nothing changes. And living with the illusion that something will change without your involvement is lying to yourself in the cruelest way. Real hope is personal responsibility. It's understanding that if you want something different, you have to do something different. That no one's coming to save you. That change won't happen magically. That every day that passes without you moving is another day further from what you say you want. Seneca taught that action is the real ally of fate. Not fate as something written, but the fate you build with your daily decisions. And here's something interesting. Hope is a kind of energy that feeds on movement. The more you do, the more you hope. Because you start seeing results, even small ones. You start trusting yourself, you start feeling that you can, but the less you do, the less you believe, because you have no evidence that you're capable. Your only proof is your inaction, and inaction kills hope faster than any failure. It's a cycle, either a virtuous one or a vicious one. If you act even a little, you build momentum, and that momentum fuels more action, and that action fuels more hope. But if you don't act, you sink into doubt, and doubt feeds more paralysis. And that paralysis kills whatever hope you had. The cycle spins in the direction you choose, by what you do or by what you refuse to do. Picture someone who wants to improve their health. They hope to feel better, to have more energy, to live longer. But they do nothing. They don't change their diet, they don't move, they don't sleep better. They just hope their body magically improves. That hope is useless. It's decorative. It changes nothing. Now picture someone with the same hope, but they take one step. Just one. They walk for 10 minutes today, then 10 more tomorrow. And after a week, they start to feel something shift. And that little shift fuels more action. That is real hope. Or think of someone in a relationship that isn't working. They hope it gets better, but they don't talk. They don't set boundaries. They don't propose changes. They just hope the other person changes on their own. That time will fix it. That one day everything will be okay without having done anything to make it okay. That hope is useless. It's passive. It's cowardly. It's a way to avoid facing the discomfort of real change. But if that person moves, if they speak up, set boundaries, take action, then hope has something to work with. Marcus Aurelius took action in times of total darkness. He ruled through constant crisis, plague, war, betrayal. He had no guarantee that his decisions would work, but he acted anyway, because he knew hope without action is just a pretty way of giving up. And he wasn't willing to give up, not because he was a blind optimist, but because he understood that his duty was to act while he still had strength. The result was out of his control, but the effort wasn't. Move 1 inch today. You don't need to move a meter. You don't need to fix everything. You just need to do something that brings you closer. Something small, something doable. Hope grows with action, not with intention. And every small move you make becomes fuel for the next one. Life will ask for the meter when you're ready. But today, just the inch. Write down one daily action that gives life to your hope. Not a huge plan, not a long list. Just one action. Something concrete you can do today, and do it. And tomorrow, another. And the next day, another. And a month from now, you'll look back and realize that hope that once seemed impossible is no longer just a wish. It's real progress. Tangible transformation. It's your life moving in the direction you chose. Hope without action is just a dream. And dreams are beautiful, but they don't build anything. Hope with movement is destiny. It's the difference between imagining a better life and building it. Between wanting to change and actually changing. Between talking about what you'll do someday and doing it today. Don't wait for life to change. Change yourself while life arrives. Because life doesn't just arrive. You build it, one step at a time, one decision at a time, one moment of courage at a time. And there, in that movement, is where hope stops being an empty word and becomes the fuel that carries you when everything else fails. In the end, it all comes down to something very simple, my friend. You don't need life to be easy to move forward. You just need to remind yourself that you're still here, that you've been through things that almost broke you, and still, you're trying to grow. That sometimes you've been alone, confused, out of strength, and yet you still haven't completely given up. That already says more about you than any perfect achievement ever could. If you've listened to these lessons with an open heart, even just a little, it means there's still a part of you inside that wants to fight for your own life. If you've made it this far, write in the comments, "I won't abandon my path." Reaching the end of this video is no accident. It means something in you wants to grow, and that already sets you apart from most. Subscribe and share this video with someone who needs it. That simple gesture helps us keep spreading this message of growth. On screen, you'll find a playlist to go even deeper. Click and let's keep learning together.